Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today in this video I'm going to check the TBS Oblivion FPV racing quadcopter. The Oblivion is available in two versions. You can either get it as a ready-to-fly set, which comes with a TBS Tango remote controller and also bundled with a LiPo battery. The version that I've got is the plug-and-play version, which means you will have to provide your own receiver as well as all the other accessories. In this video I'm going to go through the features of the quadcopter, show you how to set it up, and then head outdoors and take it for a test flight. So this is everything we're getting inside. First of all, we're getting two sets of HQ Prop 5-inch propellers. You can see their model over here. In addition, we're getting the wires that are needed to connect the radio receiver. I'm going to show you how to set it up later in this video. Then we're getting two vouchers. One I've already used to get my Velocidrone flight simulator, and this one will get you 15% off on propellers. So the first one who sees it and wants it can have it. It's valid only for one single use. A bag with motor nuts and screws to secure the canopy. The Rocket Dog linear antenna, it has an SMA antenna connector. A battery button plate and a suitable velcro strap. And as you can see, we're actually getting two canopies. One has an option to mount an action camera on top and one doesn't have it. You can see on the sides we have this placement that will enable you to use this velcro strap for the action camera. And we're getting these two adapters. One of them is suitable for a GoPro session style camera, so you have to just align it like that. Both of them have 30 degrees angle. So what you need to do is to place your action camera on top and then just use this velcro strap in order to secure it. If you want to use this type of camera, you need to use the other adapter. So you have to place it like that. You can see this one fits pretty well. And then you need to use this accessory in order to make it more secure. So just place it like that and just use this velcro strap, and as you can see it fits pretty well, but it doesn't work with all action cameras. It's designed to work with GoPro cameras. So for example, this camera is more thick, so it's not going to be compatible with this mount. You can see that it's just too thick and it won't fit correctly, so if you have a GoPro Session or a Runcam 3 camera, you won't have any issues. And if you have other cameras besides GoPro, just make sure it has the same dimensions of a GoPro camera if you want it to be properly secured. In addition, we're getting another FPV camera mount, which is labeled as Expert. The one that's already on the quadcopter will enable you to get to about 30 degrees angle, and with this one you can get to up to 6 degrees angle. Now, because the motors are protected, you won't be able to use this traditional tool that holds the motor, so we are given these two tools. So what you need to do when you want to remove or secure the propeller is just to place the tool on the corner. You can see that now it holds the motor, and then you can simply use this tool in order to secure or to remove the propeller nut. And finally, the most important thing, we get in the quadcopter itself. On the front we can find a 650 TV line CCD FPV camera. The motors are 2205 2400 kV motors that are manufactured by Cobra. They are custom made for the Oblivion, and they're using bullet connectors in order to make it easy for a swap without having the need to do any soldering work. You can also see that they are pretty well protected inside the frame. On the top of the stack we can find the flight controller. This is the Calibrate F3 flight controller from TBS. It comes pre-flashed with Betaflight 3.3.0. Under the flight controller we can find 25 ampere BLLAS ESCs. You can see that the capacitors are well organized inside. We have in total 4 of them connected to each ESC. In addition, on the bottom we can find the TBS FPV VTX. It has a selectable output strength of 25, 200, 500 and 800 milliwatt, and it has its own micro USB connector which is used to update its firmware for the TBS agent software. The FPV is using its own OSD, so it's not configurable through Betaflight software, and I'm going to show you how to set it up later in this video. Finally, on the back we can find an SMA antenna connector, and make sure before powering up the quadcopter that the antenna is connected. Even though the VTX is supposed to work without an antenna for a couple of minutes without having any issues, stay on the safe side and always power up the VTX when the antenna is connected. Now, since this is the plug-and-play version, it means we have to provide our own receiver. If you want to use an S-bus receiver, you have to use the UART 2 port, which is located over here. The left pin is the signal, then plus 3.3 volts, ground, and plus 5 volts. So you can just use this wire, and if you use any receiver that supports 5 volts, you have to remove the white wire, plug it into your receiver, and you'll have to go through the configuration of Betaflight and configure the board to use RX on UART2, since it already comes pre-configured to use crossfire on UART1. If you wish to use a crossfire receiver, which is what I'm going to do in this video, you just have to use the connector that is located over here on top. This is UART1, and the quadcopter is already configured to use this port. The left pin is the plus 5 volts, then the ground, then the TX, and then the RX, and you just have to solder these 4 wires to the correct pads on your receiver. If you're not sure how to bind and configure the crossfire receiver, feel free to check my video on the description box down below that will guide you through the process. So as you can see, the Crossfire Nano is now connected. I secured it by using this sticky pad on top of the flight controller, and I secured the antenna by using 2 zip ties on the back of the quadcopter. In addition, it's also recommended to secure the battery leads by using a zip tie and secure it to one of the arms. It's recommended because in case of a crash, the battery might be pulled out and rip off the battery pads, and it's going to be very hard to fix it. The next thing you need to do before placing the canopy is to connect the flight controller to Betaflight and make sure that everything is working fine. As you can see, after connecting the USB, it also powers up the Crossfire Nano receiver. So now let's connect to the board. Under ports, serial RX is enabled on UART1 since I'm using the Crossfire receiver. If you want to use SPAS, you will have to enable serial RX on UART2. And if we go into the receiver tab, you can see that everything is working fine, and also configured auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2 in order to change the modes. And the next thing I'm going to do is to show you how to configure the OSD. So after powering up the quadcopter, we can now configure the OSD. In order to enter the OSD setup, you'll have to put the throttle into this position. You can see a counter on the screen, and after 3 seconds you can enter the menu. Navigating is done with the pitch stick, so you can see that we can move between the options. And if you want to enter an option, you'll have to tilt the roll to the right. So let's start with the on-screen display options. We can change the units. Going back is done by tilting the roll to the left. Right now the RSSI source is the ppm. I'm going to show you how to configure it later in this video. You can set the alarm. Let's enable it, so if the RSSI is going to get too low, it's going to show a warning on the screen. We can set the ppm source channel. Right now it's set to 10. You can perform a calibration of the RSSI. Over here we have the battery settings, so you can set the alarm. You can choose if you want to display the remaining battery percentage, warning level, and you can also adjust the currency correction, so the default is 100. Under general, we can find all these settings, so you can choose if you want to show the position and heading and show satellites. Of course, you need to connect the GPS in order to show the settings. The OSD color can be changed between white and black. And you have also other settings, and you can also perform a factory reset. So if you change something and you want to restore to the factory settings, just choose this option and it's going to restore all the settings. Under flight controller settings, we can change the PID, can change the rates, you can choose between 3 available profiles, and you can also calibrate the board. Because this flight controller supports FPV camera settings, we can change all the settings of the camera, so we can enter the camera menu. So we can see this very familiar setup screen, so you can change all the settings of the camera. If you want to exit the setup menu, first hit exit. And now you'll have to tilt the roll stick to the left until you're back to the OSD setup menu. In addition, you can also enable or disable the camera audio. And changing the video transmitter settings are done through this menu. If you wish to unlock the VTX, it is done through this option. You can see that right now the power level is locked to 25 milliwatt and you won't be able to change it. So let's unlock it. So first head over to VTX unlock, enter call sign. I'm going to set it to Kremer. And if you want to save the call sign, you have to hold the roll to the right. Now it's saved. We can go back. And as you can see, now we can change the power level between 25, 200, 500 and 800 milliwatt. You can also enter pit mode and enable the VTX LED strip. Changing the band and channel are done through the settings over here. Right now it's set to A1. And you can see now it's 5865. I'm going to set it to airwave 7, which is 5860, which is the frequency I normally use. If you want to save it, just hit back and you can see that now the frequency was changed. So let's hit exit. On the left side we can see my new call sign. We can see the flight mode. Right now it's horizon, now it's acro, and now it's on air mode. You can see that it's set to air 7, and on the top of the screen, on the top left, we can see the current voltage of the battery, the average milliampere hour that is currently drawn from the battery, the percentage of the battery, the current ampere, on the top right, the total milliampere hour that was consumed, and on the bottom right, we can see the percentage of the RSSI. In order to set up the RSSI to be shown on the OSD, you will have to long press the menu, execute the crossfire script on your SD card, go to the NanoRX settings, and you will need to enable RSSI under channel 10 or below. I've enabled it on channel 10, and as you could see earlier, the RSSI readout was from channel 10. You can set it between RSSI, LQ, or RSSI/LQ. I chose this option because it's going to show the lower value between the two, so it's going to give you a better indication of your signal. Now I just got this new RF meter from Immersion LLC, so it's a good opportunity to test it out. Right now the output strength is 25 milliwatt, and you can see that the readout is about 30 milliwatt. So let's enter the OSD settings. And now let's change the power level to 200 milliwatt. And you can see that now the output strength is about 170 milliwatt. I'm right now on 5860 frequency. Now let's change it to 500 milliwatt. And you can see that right now it's about 480 milliwatt. And finally, let's test the 800 milliwatt option. And you can see that under 800, it's still about 532 milliwatt. I'm not sure why. Maybe it overheats, but this is the maximum output strength I can get. The next thing I'm going to do is to put the canopy. I'm also going to go over Betaflight settings and then head outdoors and test the Oblivion with these batteries from CNHL. I've got these two 4S batteries, and I'm also going to test it with this 5S battery. This battery is new, actually just came out, and I'm looking forward to see how it's going to perform. And I'll see you in the end of this video in order to give you my conclusion. So overall, I can tell you that the Oblivion is a great choice for a beginner who wants to get into FPV and doesn't want to build his own quadcopter. The only issue I had is with the Crossfire RX. I kept losing the telemetry. That's why I didn't want to get too far with this quadcopter, because I still didn't figure out the problem totally. What I can tell you that the VTX performed well. It was set most of the time to 200 milliwatts, and only when I flew behind buildings I had some issues, but besides that it performed great. In terms of flight time, you're gonna get about 7 minutes of flight time if you're not going to fly too aggressively using a 1300 mAh 4S battery, and if you're going to add a GoPro Session 5 camera, it's going to reduce the flight time to about 6 minutes. As you can see, my flight wasn't really aggressive. I still have the camera on beginner's mode, but of course as you advance it's recommended to change it to the expert bracket, and then you can change the angle using the hex screw on the bottom. Now, even though I crashed the Oblivion only a few times and the crashes weren't really bad, I can still tell you that the build quality is really good, and I think that it's going to withstand hard crashes. Of course, if the crashes are going to be really bad and you're going to crash into concrete, the plastic is going to break, but the cost of the frame is not that high, it's $40, so it might be advisable to get an extra frame to put it on the side, and if something will go wrong, you can just transfer all the parts to the new frame. I did have a small issue with the wires of the ESC. These are just too long and it makes closing the canopy a little bit problematic. And another small issue I had is with the antenna. You can see that if the antenna is tilted like that, it's going to hit the propellers. So I think the angle of the antenna connector should have been a little bit more steep, and then it could help preventing this issue. In terms of pricing, the price for the plug-and-play version is $300. You can say it sounds expensive, but honestly, even though the quadcopter is not using the latest hardware and it's only using an F3 flight controller, I think that it still gives you a good value for money. Just in comparison, the price of the Hawk 5 is also around $250, and I think that the Oblivion is going to be a better choice for you just because it's more protected and it's more durable, and crashing is part of the game, so you're probably going to crash a lot if you're a beginner, and I think that the Oblivion is going to withstand harder crashes than the Hawk 5, for example, or any other plug-and-play racing quadcopter that is currently on the market. The next part I'm going to show you is some HD footage I took with my new GoPro Session 5 camera. The first part was taken with this camera, and actually the second one was taken with my good old Runcam 3. As always, if you have any questions about the Oblivion, feel free to ask it in the comment section down below. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you like this video, and consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the notification bell if you're not already subscribed. See you on my next videos, and goodbye.